Welcome to Slow Night Ancient Tales, where forgotten legends come alive in the quiet of the night. Tonight, our journey takes us to the beautiful Bubyeok Pavilion, standing silently beside the moonlit river. This is the third tale from the Geumo Sinhwa, the drunken play at Bubyeok Pavilion. A lonely scholar flushed with sweet wine wanders under the bright moon. As he softly recites a poem into the night sky, a beautiful celestial maiden descends from the stars. Together, they share a dreamy, poetic night, singing of the rise and fall of ancient kingdoms that have long since turned to dust. Let the gentle sound of the flowing river wash away the heavy burdens of your day. To protect your peaceful rest, the screen will slowly fade to black as our story begins. Now close your eyes and let us drift away into this mysterious, moonlit pavilion. On a moonlit night, a scholar, flushed with fragrant wine, recites a poem alone, grieving the sorrow of a fallen kingdom. Suddenly, a celestial maiden descends from the heavens to his side. Sitting face to face with this beautiful being from another world, they share poems about the fleeting nature of forgotten heroes and the flow of time, a record of one dreamy night. Tonight, let all the heavy worries of reality drift away on the gently flowing river. For your deep sleep, as the story begins, the screen will slowly fade to dark so it won't disturb your eyes. Now, close your eyes comfortably and quietly listen to the sound of poems beneath the moon and the calm, flowing river. In Songdo, there lived a young scholar named Hong. He had a neat appearance and a pure, noble character. Even from his early days reading books at the Royal Academy, he was highly praised by many. One autumn, Scholar Hong went on a journey to Pyongyang with his friends. After spending a few days floating a boat on the Daidong River, enjoying the beautiful scenery, his companions returned to the capital first, leaving Hong alone to rent a small boat and row up the river. When he tied his boat near the waters of Yeongmyeong Temple, the day grew dark and a round moon rose in the sky. Seeing the soft moonlight breaking over the river, Hong could not contain his inspiration and walked alone up the steep cliff path toward Bubyeok Pavilion. Climbing the pavilion and looking down, the clear waters of the Daidong River flowed calmly like silk, and the blue moonlight quietly settled in the empty courtyard. The traces of the splendid ancient dynasty were nowhere to be found, seeing only the silently flowing river and the unchanging moonlight. A profound sorrow and the fleeting nature of life washed over his heart. He brought out the fragrant wine he had prepared and poured himself a glass. As the gentle warmth of the wine set in, Hong leaned against the railing of the pavilion, sighing at the rise and fall of the old kingdom, and recited a poem in a low voice. Yesterday, as I passed the ancient ruins of Gija, only cold dew rested upon the wild grass. The thousand-year fortress walls that stood on the rocks are empty, and only the pavilion standing tall by the blue river looks as lonely as a shadow. Morning flowers that once bloomed in rivalry now cover the ruins of the old palace, and the fading autumn light lingers on the empty battlements. As the crescent moon rises, thoughts of home keep me awake. From where does this flute song come, breaking my heart so deeply? Even after reciting the poem, Hong's lonely heart was not easily soothed. Soon, the night grew deep into the midnight hour, and everywhere was as quiet as a falling leaf. It was when Hong was tapping the railing, letting out a long sigh. Suddenly, a clear and mystical fragrance drifted down from the sky, riding the wind, and the sound of light footsteps gently landing on the pavilion was heard. Startled, he raised his head and saw a beautiful woman standing before him, her hair elegantly pinned up like clouds. Her face was as dazzling as a peach blossom holding the morning dew. Wearing a pale blue Rami dress with rustling jade ornaments, she looked exactly like an immortal who had just descended from the heavens. To her left and right stood two maidens in blue dresses. The woman smiled gracefully at Hong and spoke in a soft voice. A noble scholar recites a beautiful poem alone on this bright moonlit night, and so I too was moved to visit. Please do not consider me an uninvited guest. Would you share a pure poem with me? Surprised but inwardly joyful, Hong stood up and bowed politely. How could a noble maiden of the heavens descend to the side of such a humble mortal? As the woman modestly took a seat opposite him, the two began to exchange pure poems, matching rhymes beneath the bright moonlight. When Hong recited a poem, she replied, and when she recited, Hong answered again. The elegant and noble night deepened. While sharing poems and admiring each other's brilliant talents, Hong carefully asked about her origins. "Are you originally a being of the heavens, or do you have ties to the human world?" The woman let out a soft sigh, and looking at the flowing Daidong River with distant eyes, she began to tell the story of her past. "I am originally a descendant of the Ji dynasty, the daughter of the king who was the ancient master of this Pyongyang fortress. Long, long ago, when a man named Weeman invaded and the destiny of our kingdom fell, I could not bear to become a subject of thieves, and chose to protect my steadfast virtue with my own death. Thankfully, the heavens took pity on my devotion and accepted me as an immortal in the celestial realm." Adjusting her collar, she continued, "Thousands of years have passed since I began living in the Jade Emperor's palace, riding the clouds. But tonight, the moonlight was unusually bright, and the river was so clear, unable to resist the nostalgia of my old home, I came down to the human world for a moment. Just then, the sound of your poem soothed my lonely heart, and so I revealed myself." After finishing her story, the woman gestured, and her maidens brought out heavenly food and wine on jade trays. However, those foods, though beautiful as if holding the moonlight, were so cold and hard that Hong, a human, could not take a bite. Seeing this, the woman let out a silent, clear laugh and said, "With a human body, it must be difficult to eat the food of immortals." She immediately ordered her maidens to bring warm rice and side dishes from the human world. Sharing the neatly prepared food, the two sat together again and shared gentle glasses of wine. The moonlight softly broke like silk, and the river softly rippled against the night breeze. As the pleasant warmth of the wine rose, the woman quietly brought out a jade flute. A sorrowful yet beautiful melody began to fill the empty pavilion, and she began to recite another long, melancholic poem, holding the rise and fall of ancient eras. The once splendid red pillars of the palace have already turned to ashes, and the jade steps are overgrown with green moss. The grand ambitions of heroes that seem to last 1,000 years are but mere bubbles before that flowing river. Every year when spring comes, the indifferent flowers bloom again, but the people of the past who left once do not know how to return. Tonight, as we share pure wine beneath this beautiful moonlight, let us scatter all the vain sorrows of the human world into the night breeze of Bubyeok Pavilion." Resting his chin on his hand, Hong listened to that lonely yet magnificent poem, and without realizing it, was deeply immersed in profound emotion and the sorrow of a fleeting life. The night grew deep, and it was almost time for the distant dawn to break. As the cool morning breeze blew in and the faint sound of a rooster crowing was heard from afar, the woman stood up with a look of regret. "The nights in the human world are truly so short. Now it is time for the gates of heaven to open, so I must return." Hong, feeling sorrowful, tried to catch the hem of her dress, but she smiled a clear, gentle smile and quietly waved her hand. "Our connection ends here. Please do not dwell too much on this fleeting encounter in the mortal world. There will be a day we meet again in the palace of the Jade Emperor." Having spoken those words, the woman and her maidens gracefully floated into the air. Her beautiful figure slowly faded away as if seeping into the morning mist, and riding on a 5-colored cloud completely disappeared beyond the distant sky. In the empty pavilion, only the mystical and fragrant scent share he left behind gently lingered. Left alone, Hong was devastated and gazed up at the sky for a long time. The morning sunlight broke over the Daidong River, shining dazzlingly, but his heart felt completely empty. He carefully tucked the poems she left behind into his sleeves and, lonely, boarded his small boat to return home. Returning to his hometown, Hong could not forget the dreamy encounter of that night. Yearning for the celestial maiden every day, he fell ill. He stopped eating and spent his days just staring at the sky in longing until one night. In his dream, the maiden in the blue dress, whom he saw at Bubyeok Pavilion, came to him and politely announced, "Our Lady wishes to see you, scholar. The Emperor of Heaven has looked kindly upon your noble and pure character, and has granted you a position in the celestial realm. Now you will wander the constellations in the sky with Our Lady." Waking from the dream, Hong finally smiled brightly. He washed his body thoroughly, changed into clean clothes, and quietly said goodbye to his family. Then, unlike someone who was passing away from this world, he gently closed his eyes with a very peaceful and joyful face. People believed that Hong was called by the celestial maiden and ascended to heaven to become an immortal. Even now, on bright moonlit nights, they say that the clear, elegant sound of the two reciting poems in the empty Bubyeok Pavilion can be faintly heard riding the waves of the Daedong River.